I guess we were in our 24th year of growing when Mark died last year. And so when I stopped it, I had moved into my 25th year. I just got to the point at the end of May where I just said, I just can't. Everything was going well, but there were starting to be really expensive things that needed to be replaced, that in order to justify replacing them, I was going to have to be in this for another several years. This is not where I need to put what little bit of cash I have right now, because I don't have Mark here. We were doing it together. While the farm was working, there was more hope for selling it with problems. But to sell a piece of property with problems that doesn't have the vision growing right now, it's hard to capture someone's. And then you're also looking for the next farmer who has that skill set or that ability to hire the skill set. So the maintenance, the ability to grow, the customer service, the bookkeeping, all those things. So we had a full house of lettuce that was producing over 2,000 heads of lettuce a week. We were producing, 50 to 60 pounds of microgreens a week, and we could have done more, but that was sort of our sweet spot. And then we would have niche products, like somebody wanted squash blossoms. Oh, well, somebody else wants squash blossoms. Okay, it's worth it to grow squash blossoms, so we grew squash blossoms. And then we had what I considered my eye candy seasonal products, like the tomatoes and the cucumbers and the peppers and eggplants, things that went along well with the lettuce. So the lettuce and microgreens were our base crops, year-round customers, especially restaurant customers. And then cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, eggplant seasonally were the icing on the cake. When my husband and I were dating, we would have these pipe dream conversations about wouldn't it be great someday to have a farm. He grew up on a farm in Ohio, and I grew up in Northeast Tennessee on the edge of my grandfather's farm, so I was always exposed to agriculture, and we had large gardens, and I knew how to pick beans and how to hoe things and how to can. And so fast forward several years later, we were living in this area, and his company decided to move to Maryland, and we decided not to take the move. And we were looking for his next career move. And so we looked at different options, and Mark knew about the greenhouses that were already here. And he stopped by and talked to the people who owned it and got to be friends with them and said, hey, could I rent part of your property and grow something that goes along with what you grow? And at the time, they were growing tomatoes hydroponically in the greenhouses. And the woman who owned the greenhouses at the time said, we're ready to sell. Talked to his parents, they loaned us money, and so we bought the farm in 1999. Over time, we added 2 more greenhouses. 3 years into owning the farm, we actually moved a house over here so that we could live on the property. So that required a septic to go in. So all the upgrades to have a house on the property had to come also. Adding structures does not always add profitability. You may have revenue, but if your expenses go up to match it, and I'm having to manage more, my margin got thinner and thinner. If I had done it differently at a certain point, I would have forced myself as the bookkeeper to have been more willing to give up time doing what I could do but someone else could do, for instance, harvesting or cleaning, or I was paying the bills and I was putting money in the bank, but I wasn't always getting everything into QuickBooks so that I could use a tool to help me process the information. And then on the other side, and Mark's not here to defend himself, so I'll be gentle, is that he was really good at sort of MacGyvering things, but sometimes the MacGyvering only works if MacGyver's there to keep it going. He didn't like to document. It was like literally pulling teeth out of him to try to get him to write something down or to explain where things were connected. No one knows where the water lines are on the property. We have a general idea because we know where it comes out and we sort of see but there are mysteries on the farm. And I kept saying, sweetheart, part of our someday may mean that someday we can't physically do it, but we're not dead. So the idea of an exit strategy was not well formed. I would read articles about that in newspapers or in magazines, usually in like ag magazines. And lots of times the idea was to get set up for the next generation. My next generation didn't want to do this. We were moving toward trying to sell the property as a growing farm, which had a lot more value because we had customers in place. We had markets that were strong. We had a lot of goodwill in the community as far as, oh yeah, Tega Hills, I've seen their name on a restaurant menu. And we had, in the last few years, a really solid crew. And obviously crew can stay or go, but there was a knowledge base, and it was a blessing to us because they were super loyal. So all of those things were good things, but we still had a very wishy-washy exit strategy. Like someday, it would have been better to have perhaps at different points always keep things maintained. Keep a list of your current pain points and know, if you can't fix them right now, start, at least they're on a list and everybody knows what needs to be done next. Or to know how old things are so that I know when they're about to go out, and I can be transparent about that in a conversation with a potential buyer. In retrospect, it would have been better if we had kept better records, and not just records that you stick in a file and look at someday, but records information and data that actually helps you make real-time decisions and then decisions for the future. And back to that, good enough maintenance is not good enough to sell a piece of property.